He was carrying a box. Office stuff, stapler, a plant nobody watered, the framed thing his company gave him for 5 years of service. He didn't see me until he was maybe 8 feet away. I was leaning against my truck, hands in pockets, not moving. I said, I had one question for you. Past tense. Hat. Already answered. He caught that. Saw his key stop moving in his hand. He opened his mouth, the look frank. He'd been rehearsing, I could tell. I raised one hand. Not angry. Just don't. You thought I'd never do anything. 4 years you counted on it. He stood there. Box in his arms. Nothing to say. I got in the truck and left him in that parking lot. If this story made you stop scrolling, please subscribe to Familix's Revenge and hit like. It helps me keep sharing stories like this one. I'll tell you how we got there. 3 trucks, 8 drivers. Dispatch board on the wall that I still write by hand even though there's an app for it. My guys use the app. I use the board. We've had this argument. I won by not having it. I built the business over 22 years, started driving myself, then bought a second truck when the knees were still fine, then a third when they weren't. My wife Helen used to say I ran the company the way I ran everything quietly, completely, and without asking for help until it was almost too late. She wasn't wrong. Her thermos is still on the passenger seat of the Kenworth. 11 years since she passed. I keep meaning to move it. Haven't. Marcus has been with me 14 years. First hire. He does the morning pre-departure check without being asked, has since year 1, and we've never discussed it. That's the working relationship I understand. Show up. Do what needs doing, don't make it a conversation. Most things don't need to be a conversation. That's what I believed anyway. Believed it long enough that it became a policy. Applied it to the trucks, the routes, the contracts. Applied it to my daughter's marriage too, which is where it stopped being a philosophy and started being a problem. Claire is 32. She works in hospital administration, long hours, good at it, the kind of person who fixes things without announcing she's fixing them. Got that from her mother. The stubbornness she got from me, which she would tell you unprompted. Derek came into the picture 4 years ago. Charming in that easy way some men are. Remembered names, laughed at the right moments, called me Frank from the first handshake, like we'd known each other for years. My guys liked him, said so. I'd nod. I had a rule about Claire's marriage. Don't interfere, give her space, respect her choices. I told myself this was the right kind of father to be. Not the one who hovers, not the one who asks too many questions. It sounded like wisdom every time I said it to myself. I said it to myself often. That should have told me something. Every Saturday I drove to their house. Same time, same groceries Claire stopped asking me to bring years ago, but I kept bringing anyway. Derek was never home on Saturdays. Jim, he said. Every week. 4 years of Saturdays. I noted it the way I note a route that adds unnecessary miles. Filed it, said nothing, kept driving. This was 9 weeks before the parking lot. Midweek. Claire needed a specific shade of gray for her bathroom. One of those colors with a name like Morning Mist or Quiet Harbor that looks identical to the other 40 gray swatches, but apparently isn't. Derek had said he'd go with her. Cancelled that morning. I offered. That's the kind of thing I did instead of asking how things were. We were walking out of the store. I had the bag. Claire was 2 steps ahead looking at her phone. She stopped mid-step. Across the street there was a cafe, outdoor tables. Derek at one of them, gray jacket, the one I'd seen hanging by their door every Saturday for 4 years. A woman across from him, his hand on her wrist. Not a handshake, not a greeting. The kind of touch that has a history behind it. My hand tightened on the door handle of the car. Just grip. No gasp, no dramatic anything. Just my hand tightening on metal like it needed to hold onto something solid. Claire made a sound that wasn't a word. 1 syllable, cut short. She turned back toward the store. Fast. I followed her. Paint aisle. She stood with her back to me facing the color swatches, and I stood next to her. And neither of us said anything for 3 minutes. Maybe longer, I wasn't counting. The swatches blurred. I wasn't reading them either. I said, "Do you want to go home?" She said, "No." Then, Wes. I drove the long route. 20 extra minutes. Neither of us mentioned it. I drove home and made coffee. Poured it, didn't drink it. Poured it out, made another. Left that one on the counter until it was cold, then poured that out too. Stood at the sink for a while doing nothing useful. I opened the drawer where my father's logbook lives 1987, first truck, his handwriting on every page. I didn't take it out. Just looked at it. Closed the drawer. The thing that kept coming back wasn't the image of Derek at that table. It was the calculation. He'd looked at me, actually thought about me, assessed me, and decided, this man won't move. And he'd been right. 4 years every Saturday. Filed away. Said nothing. He built 4 years on that assessment, and he wasn't wrong too. That's the part that sat heaviest. Not that he'd done it. That he'd known he could. I left the coffee on the counter. Went to bed. Lay there with the engine running and nowhere to go yet. First I needed to understand it completely. Then I'd move. That's how I work. Always has been. Some nights that's a strength. That night it felt like the thing Derek had counted on. Day 8. Marcus changed the Thursday Riverside run, rerouted through Elm. Said it avoided construction on Route 9. Added 12 minutes. The new route passed 2 blocks from Claire's house. I checked the board, looked at him. He was writing something on his clipboard, not looking up. I said, all right. He walked out to check truck 2. We never discussed it again. I found Kathleen Marrero through Derek's company website, staff directory, operations team. Called her at the office number. Said I was Claire's father and needed to understand something. She went quiet for a moment. Then said she could meet Thursday. Diner near their office, her choice. I said fine. She was already there when I arrived. Late 40s, coffee in both hands, the look of someone who'd been rehearsing what to say, and still wasn't sure. She'd seen Derek and a woman named Jess at the company Christmas party. Seen them again in the parking garage in March. Thought about calling Claire. Didn't. Said she wasn't sure it was her place. I asked what date the Christmas party was. I should have asked what she saw exactly. Wasted the first 5 minutes on dates. She told me what she remembered. Then, almost as she was gathering her coat, she said, Claire was at that party too. I always wondered if she knew and just handled it quietly. I said Claire didn't know. Said it with the certainty of a man who had a policy of not asking. Drove home with that sentence sitting in the passenger seat the whole way. That evening I called the restaurant where Jess worked. Kathleen had mentioned the name without meaning to. Asked to speak with her on her break. She picked up. No hesitation, no performance. Just, he said you were the kind of man who keeps his head down. That Claire got that from you. I asked when he'd said that. She said she didn't remember exactly. Then she said he was never going to leave Claire. Never planned to. I asked why she was telling me this. She said because he told her I'd never call. That I was the kind of man who doesn't. She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand. The legal pad on my kitchen table had 2 pages now. Derek hadn't just had an affair. He'd run a calculation, assessed me, measured me, decided I was a safe variable. 4 years. He wasn't wrong about the variable. He was wrong about the expiration date. Day 8 after the hardware store. I put together a folder, printed timeline, cross-referenced dates, a photograph of Jess I'd found on a public profile. Evidence assembled the way I'd assemble a delivery manifest. Organized, labeled, ready to present. I drove to Claire's and knocked. She opened the door, saw the folder, said, "What is that?" Not a question, a recognition. I started explaining that I wanted to organize what we knew before we decided anything. She closed her eyes for a moment. Dade, I've been crying for 8 days. I said I knew. She said, you brought a folder. I came in, put it face down on her counter. We sat for 40 minutes and I took it home with me when I left. Driving back, I'd prepared for the wrong conversation. Spent a week building the right document for the wrong moment. Week 3. I found Derek's temporary address through a mutual contact. Friend's apartment, North Side. Drove there. Rang the buzzer. His voice through the intercom, yeah. I said it was Frank. 7 seconds of silence. Then I'm not home. I stood at the buzzer for a moment, walked back to my truck. The direct approach. Give him the option to come clean himself, let him choose. He'd simply refused it. I had no leverage yet. Called Marcus on the way home, asked him to cover morning check. He said all right. Week 4. Kitchen table 11 at night. 3 pages on the legal pad now. Laptop open to Derek's company HR page. Name circled Paul Garrett, regional manager. I had Kathleen's written account, Jess's confirmation in my notes, the cafe photograph I'd taken myself 2 days prior. I looked at that photograph for a moment. I could send it wider, To people Derek knew socially, faster damage. 30 seconds I looked at it, then put it face down. Not that way. Not with Claire watching. Garrett's process would do the rest. I'd present it professionally and leave the decision where it belonged, with someone whose job it was to make it. Monday morning. I wore the clothes I wear for client meetings. Garrett's office. Corner unit, tidy desk. The kind of man who reads everything before signing it. I put 3 items in front of him. Kathleen's written account. The cafe photograph. The schedule cross-reference. I said I wasn't asking him to do anything specific. I was telling him what was happening in his organization, and what he did with it was his decision. He read without speaking for nearly 2 minutes. Then said he'd need to look into it through proper channels. I thanked him, shook his hand and left. 5 to 7 business days I estimated. I'd already calculated the sequence. What I hadn't calculated was that Derek would find out before I told Claire. Day 3 after the Garrett meeting. Thursday wrote Marcus's version through Elm. Phone rang. Claire. She said Derek had called her. Said HR had contacted him. He'd assumed she sent me. Called her screaming. She hadn't known anything was happening. I said I knew. She said, "Are you sorry?" I took one beat too long. She heard it, Dad. I was going to tell you last week. I'd already decided. I was going to ask him to sign papers. I had it. And now he thinks I set him up, and I'm explaining myself to him instead of this was mine. You took it. I said I thought I was helping. She said she knew I did. Then she hung up. I was on Elm Street, 2 blocks from her house. Lights probably on. I sat in the truck and didn't move for a while. Derek was done. That part had worked exactly as planned. The professional network in this city is not large, and Garrett had made calls. Derek resigned before the formal process completed. Gone. And Claire was 2 blocks away not answering, and I was sitting in my truck on her street, like I had been every Thursday for however many weeks, and the distance between where I was and where I needed to be wasn't 2 blocks. I checked the dispatch board on my phone. All trucks on schedule. Put the phone down. 3 weeks later I got a text from Kathleen. 4 words: Derek resigned. Heard Jess transferred. I read it at the dispatch board. Put the phone face down. Picked it up again. Put it face down again. Derek was gone from the company. Gone from the professional network that matters in this city. Gone from the calculation he'd built 4 years on. That part was done. Claire let me come on Saturday. 3 weeks after the phone call, first Saturday back. She'd made coffee, which she hadn't done before. I always made it myself. Small thing. We sat at the table. There were papers on the counter to the side. I didn't look at them directly. Knew what they were. She said he'd signed everything. His lawyer had called hers the day before. I said good. She nodded. Then she said she wasn't over what I'd done. Going to Garrett without telling her. I said I knew. She said she understood why I did it. That I was protecting her. But that I'd done it the way I do everything, without telling her first. I said I should have told her. She said yeah. Didn't say it was okay. Just yeah. We finished the coffee. The papers stayed on the counter. Neither of us mentioned them. Before I left I asked if she wanted me to come next Saturday. She said yes. Next Saturday, I drove the Thursday wrote that evening, Marcus's version, through Elm, past her street. Her lights were on. One other car in the driveway I didn't recognize. Friend. Probably. I drove past. Thought about stopping. Decided I'd call instead. Later in the week. I didn't call that week. Called the week after. She picked up on the second ring. The thermos is still on the passenger seat of the Kenworth. Still Helen's. I keep meaning to move it. Same answer every time I think about it, haven't yet. I took the long way back to the office. Same 20 extra minutes as the day Claire and I left the hardware store. Didn't plan it that way. Just drove. Some things you don't plan, they just happen. And somehow that ends up being enough.